Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, which is about controlling Flight Simulator 2020, your aircraft, with just the keyboard and mouse. Predominantly just the keyboard. Now, I've not lost my mind. A number of people have asked me for this video. So to continue my series of videos of setting up flight controls, I'm going to give you my hints and tips of using the keyboard, just the keyboard basically, and the mouse if you want to control autopilot and that type of thing. I don't condone this, I don't recommend this at all. If anything, just get hold of a cheap Xbox 360 controller and use that. But it is possible just to use the keyboard for your flights. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Let's get on with the video. Okay, so before we go full screen on the PC to show you my settings, I'll just show you a couple of things I've altered. I've got my cursor keys as my main flight control surfaces. So if I'm turning left and right, do this gently because they're highly sensitive. I'll talk about sensitivity in a moment. But as you can see, left and right, and if I pitch up and down, it'll pitch up and down. So you're just using the cursor keys there. Let's just get my aircraft centered mainly, so it's okay. I've got my trim controls on page up and page down. So trim page up will trim my aircraft down. You can't see it so much in this view, but it does. And page up, page down rather, will trim my aircraft up. I've kept a lot of the controls, throttle controls as they were, so increase throttle is F3, decrease F2, kept them the same. I've used the numpad, I've altered these for my quick views, so left and right, and up over the nose of the aircraft, and down for my instruments. And number 3 and 1 to switch between instrument views. And control and space, I think that's default, will take you back to your, reset your cockpit view. I've set one or two other things up, the brakes for the B key, and control and B for parking brakes. One or two of those controls. Now there's no way around this. The controls on your flight controls, so if you're moving your aircraft left and right and up and down, it's highly sensitive. You have to tap the controls. I'll go full screen in a moment, just bear with me. But if we go to escape and controls, and make sure you're on your keyboard that you're using. Under sensitivity, you cannot set the sensitivity of the keyboard. It's a bane of contention for many users who like to use the keyboard with Flight Simulator 2020. You can't set any sensitivity here. I'll show you a quick hint and tip of how to make the keyboard less sensitive in a moment. So let's just go back and resume. So those are the controls that I've set up. I'll talk you through them in a moment. First, let's jump onto the PC and show you that quick tip on how to make the keyboard less sensitive when you're turning and rolling and pitching. Okay, so on the PC, I'm in windowed mode on the PC for a reason. I'll show you that in just a second. Using the keyboard by default to move left and right, so roll left and right. It's highly sensitive under any default setting. I'm just tapping the keys there and I'm moving left and right far quicker. If I go up and down, it's far too sensitive. And like I said, press escape, go to controls. There's nothing you can do for that in Flight Simulator 2020. There's no sensitivity settings you can alter to make that any better. But there is a quick tip that may help. Let's just press escape. So I'm pausing the simulator. I'll go to control panel. Go to control panel on your computer. So just type in control panel in your search bar. It should bring up this. Go to hardware and sound. View devices and printers. And if you've got a keyboard set up, or plugged in, you'll see the keyboard here somewhere. Right click on that keyboard, on your keyboard, go to keyboard settings, left click, and here where it's got repeat delay, repeat rate, yours going to be set up by default something like that. I don't remember where mine were at default, but it's something of that sort. My tip is here, put both these top ones, don't worry about the bottom one, both the top ones down to long and slow, and apply, and okay, so they're both full left basically. Repeat delay and repeat rate, both to the left. Press OK, go back to the simulator, and you should find it's still sensitive. It's not optimal, but you should find it's far less sensitive, or less sensitive than it was previously. It's not the ultimate solution. I'm going to keep digging to see if I can find a program or something that will let me, as you can see, I've just pressed it a little bit longer there. It's still quite sensitive, but more controllable. I'll do a full flight at the end of this video to show you it is possible to use the keyboard on a full flight. It's just about controllable. Like I said, I'm not condoning this. I'm not recommending using the keyboard to fly in Flight Simulator 2020. But using that quick tip, it's just about possible. Okay, let's go to my settings that I've set up on the keyboard. Let's go to that next. Okay, so in options controls, I'm on my keyboard profile that I'm using. I've got all the tabs closed, but if I go to flight controls, surfaces and primary flight controls, you can see I've got my cursor keys, which are roughly here, the cursor keys. So up, down, left and right as my main flight controls. So if I'm moving left, I'll move my cursor key left, right, up and down, etc, etc. Under default, oops, let's go to default. Your best, so this is a default keyboard setup that Flight Simulator 2020 comes with out of the box. You best actually going to search by inputs here, press your cursor key up to see what controls your cursor key is set as. Something like increase cockpit view height. I've deleted that under my previous profile. I won't do it again here because I've done it already, but I just typed in here, let's do that again, search by input, move my cursor key up and deleted, so go there, clear current input, and then press validate and apply and save. I've cleared any input, so let's go to cursor key down, that were going to affect my flight when I press those buttons. By default, I believe sort of left and right, so moving left and right and up and down are done by your numpad 4, 6, 8 and 2. Let's just type in 4. This is default. As you can see, yeah, roll left. So if I press 4 by default, I'll be moving left and right. It's up to you. I found the cursor keys better to use. Let's go to my profile. I found the keyboard better to use. Flight control services. Oops, let's get that off. Just bear with me. Let's just close all these tabs so you can see what I'm talking about again. So unfortunately, when you mess around with settings, you have to do that. So flight control services. I've just found using my cursor keys is better for me when I'm moving my aircraft left or right or pitching up or down. Secondary controlling, I've left the secondary control services, so decrease flaps and increase flaps as default. That was okay for me. Trimming services, I've moved my elevator, so my nose up and nose down trim to page up and page down, like I mentioned before. Once again, under default, the default keyboard setting, search by input, press page up, I'm not going to do it again here, but for example, if anything's going to affect your new settings, delete them from here. So once again, on the default keyboard, search by input. If I go page down in this case, anything that I don't want here that I'm not going to use, I'll just click on it, clear current input, validate, and apply and save. So it clears the input setting already. So keyboard in use, let's go back. I'm going to have to close all the menus again, but it won't take a moment. Just to show you what I've been doing there. In fact, I don't need to. Flight control services will stay on that. So yeah, that's what I've changed my elevator, my trim nose up and trim nose down, page up and down. The only other things I've really changed are the brakes. Whatever it was by default, I wanted my brakes as the B key. You can have your brakes at whatever you want. I've just set it to B, and toggle back parking brakes, control and B. So on the default keyboard, I just cleared any settings that were set to B that I wasn't going to use. Landing gear, I've kept the same. The only other thing is power management. I've actually kept that the same as well. So increase and decrease throttle, F2 and F3. That's default. I believe the other ones I've changed are the cameras. So cockpit camera. Is it cockpit camera? It was cockpit camera. Let's just open that back up again. So quick view left and quick view right. Instead of having your control surfaces moving left and right, rolling left and right, up and down, I've changed the, because I set my cursor keys as my control surfaces, it means my numpad was free to use my cockpit quick view left. Let's show you this in flight. Pressing numpad 4 to look left, look right, look over the aircraft, and to look down at my instruments. And I set number 1 and 3 on my numpad to view my instruments. And control and space will take you back to your default cockpit view. I think that's by default. So there you go, those are the settings I've set up. Let's just show you that again. Camera, cockpit camera. I don't want to make a tutorial of this, it's just things I've changed. The important thing, if you're going to change, so cockpit quick view up, down, left and right, which I've just explained, I've put that on my numpad keys. The only thing you need to do is go to your default keyboard. What I would do is go to preset manager and duplicate that, and then you would have to name it something else. So if I duplicate that, I would name it whatever I'm going to name it. As you've seen, I've named it keyboard in use. Copy it and then alter the settings there. So delete the settings that are already set and then rename them or reassign them. So listen, that's what I've done there. I don't believe there's anything else I need to show you here. Let's just go back and resume. Let's just make sure. Yep, so I've just set up all the commands like I've set there. I showed you the tip to reduce the keyboard sensitivity slightly. What we're going to do now, we're going to do a full flight. I'm going to take off from London City Airport, hopefully, and land back at London City Airport using the keyboard only. Okay, so here we are at London City Airport. Goodness help me here. One thing I would do is go up to the top here and remove that bottom wind layer. I'll link the video I did on this. Just go to the weather tab. Click on that sort of tap icon or wind icon there. Left click and delete the layer. That's going to make things a lot easier. And you can close that. I'll use what I set up on my numpad 2. It will go to my instruments. Use 3 to go left and right, and control and B, that's what I've set up to release the parking brake. Parking brake release, control and space will reset my cockpit view. I can look left and right using my numpad keys as I mentioned before. Using the default F3 key to throttle up, go full throttle. I don't recommend this, but I'll show you it is possible, I hope. And disclaimer, this is not going to be pretty. It's not the easiest thing to use, just the keyboard in flight. Although it is possible. It is possible. Okay, so I'll take off there. Nice gentle taps on my cursor keys just to control my movement, my pitch, and my roll left and right. I'm going to decrease throttle slightly. I'm just tapping the F2 key just to decrease slightly. I don't need to go full throttle. And what we'll do, we'll fly past the shard. I'll trim down using my page up key, tapping it to trim down a little bit more. There we go, that'll do. It should come to roughly level flight. I'll fly past the shard, I hope, and not into it. Just decrease my throttle a little bit more, and then turn back onto London City Airport. That's the aim. So again, I'm just tapping the control sort of trimming surfaces just to trim out a little bit, because I'm coming up to my 1,000, roughly 1,000, maybe 1,200 feet. So I'll let it climb a little bit more. As you can see, I'm just using the keyboard. It is possible. Not recommended, but possible. So I'm just using my cursor keys. I'm just tapping them. For goodness sake, even with that hint I showed you before, don't hold down the key to turn left and right or pitch up and down, because you're going to be in a world of danger, and basically you'll probably crash if you did that. Just trim down a little bit more now. Throttle back a little bit. Pressing the F2 key to throttle back. Don't want to go too slow. Dabbing the trim nose down key just to trim down a little bit more. A little bit more. Come off course a bit, of course. Okay, so it'll be around this area. I'll press the N key, that's default, just to see what's going on. I can use my mouse. Here's where you would use your mouse, just to look around if you want to. N key again to get back into the keyboard. As you can see, I've got slightly skew whiffy. No problem. I can just tap my flight control surfaces, my cursor keys, to get me back on track. Just throttling down a little bit more there. I don't want to be going... this is the speed I want to be going at. Don't want to be turning yet. There's a shard, so what we can do is turn... oh, let's turn to our right. I always find that slightly easier. I'm just tapping my right cursor key rather. And then just tapping the left one to control that turn. Tapping up or down, my cursor key down, just to make sure I'm not going to descend too much. And it's just about controlling, if you're using keyboard, controlling your turn with simple taps of the keys. And it is possible. Like I said, I'm hopefully, touch wood, doing okay here. I'll just increase my rates of turn. It's kind of what you would do on a yoke or joystick. If you're moving left or right, you would move in the opposite direction just to control your turn. Depending on what aircraft you're flying, of course. In this case, a Cessna 172. See the airport ahead of us there, so I'm going to have to come back on a course to that. Like I said, this is not going to be perfect, so I'm not going to follow procedures because it's not easy with the keyboard. So you know what, I'm going to go, even though it's may not be correct. I'm going to go full, sorry, flaps 1 there. I'll just slow my speed. I'm just controlling that sort of rate of climb you got there when you deploy flaps with my... Oops. Let's just... with my trim. There we go. Like I said, it's a bit awkward, but just about doable. Just about. Just come back on my throttle a little bit. I'm tapping F2 to come back on my throttle. The aircraft will want to nose down when I do that. That's okay. There we go. Just tapping the left and right just to get myself... As you can see, not easy. Not easy. I did much better in practice, of course, as always. Just coming back on my throttle again. Trimming up so I don't descend too quickly. Then I can control a turn to the left, hopefully. Airport in sight, or runway in sight. I come back off the throttle a bit more now. So I'm trying to control my descent and climb with the throttle at the moment, whilst trying to set up with the keyboard, cursor keys. Not an easy thing. I'll go next stage of flaps. Just watch that sort of spurge of altitude that you'll gain doing that. So trimming just to control that. And I can increase the throttle slightly or trim slightly. Not perfect. It's never going to be with keyboard, but as you can see, we're slowly coming up to the runway. A little bit fast, but I can bleed off speed. Oops, did I press active pause? I did. Didn't mean to there. Last stage of flaps. Come back on my throttle a bit more. In fact, increase throttle because I'm descending too much now. So I'm just tapping the decrease and increase throttle, F2 and F3, to control that. Let me just concentrate because I don't want to crash. Increase throttle a little bit, coming down a bit too quick. That seems okay. I'm off the centre line, of course, but I'm always off the centre line. I can decrease my throttle and start using my cursor keys to control my pitch now. And just float. Float. As best I can. Yeah, not perfect. Not perfect. But down. I've got my B key set as my brakes. Raise my flaps. And we're down, and we seem to be in one piece, so it is possible, not recommended, but you can fly with keyboard only if you really must. If it's been helpful to you, give the video a like if any of those hints have been helpful. Don't forget to leave a like. Let me know your thoughts. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, this video, but let me know your thoughts below. Subscribe for more, plenty of flight simulator videos, more professional videos coming out, and I'll see you soon.